Clubhouse.
Jill, ask them what they think about supervillain.
That sounds better to me. More exciting.
Do you prefer saving America? How about saving the world?
Nope. It's saving America.
Welcome back to Podcast V, the Pod Clubhouse coverage for Amazon Video's The Boys. This is for the 5th episode of the 3rd season. This one is called The Last Time to Look on This World of Lies. With me, as usual, is Kat from the Latinx Lens podcast.
Hey, y'all.
What up? And Inez from the beautiful West Coast.
Hello.
Whereas the last episode, I could kind of sum up in just like a couple of ideas and a few character notes. This one, I had almost 2.5 pages of plot points that I had to distill down into talking points for this podcast because a lot of little things happened in this one.
I'm interested because I had kind of like an opposite.
Really?
It almost did feel like filler a little bit, like a filler episode.
Well, I can definitely see where you're coming from on that because this, like, as TV reviewers, we've come to recognize the episodes where things happen and then the episodes that set up things that are to come, right? And this one definitely felt like that in most ways. Mm-hmm. But first, let's look at Kimiko and her recovery, which I totally did not call in our last discussion. I thought she was dead meat. You two were more hopeful. So...
Although I didn't see it coming the way it happened. She's cured, I guess.
Well, that's a talking point, isn't it? Like, in this episode, we saw Soldier Boy use his chest beam a couple times for very destructive purposes also. Are we to understand that at a lower power, he can also just erase powers or at least temporarily take away powers? What do you guys think? Do you think they're gone for good, or do you think, nah, this is just temporary, they'll come back?
Oh, man, it's a really great question. I want to say that it's probably a permanent change. You know, they make a big point of telling us about how much of his presence is full of radiation. Yeah. And radiation, we know, kills healthy blood cells. And these are blood cells that are connected to whatever reactive fusion it had with the compound V. And so I can definitely see how he could like totally wipe it out. But on the other hand, I guess I could see it eventually being able to recover at one point, since like cells do like regenerate and whatnot. My ongoing headspace right now is possibly that Kimiko's lost her powers permanently, but maybe if she decides to take a compound V, it'll like reactivate.
I want to go down the rabbit hole of possibly, Soldier Boy is a weapon, but I think he could also be the key maybe to, I don't know if there's already a cure to take out, I can't remember in the last seasons. Well, I guess not, because I think Kimiko would probably have taken it already, but I feel like he could be also a key, like while he can destroy soups, I feel like maybe since Kimiko she could heal one of her powers, that sort of stopped him from killing her outright, like that we've seen him do in this episode, and that kind of saved her, and in the process the radiation cured the power possibly, because he's full of radiation, so maybe that like cured her powers, and that kind of could be a key to making a anti-soup venom or whatever.
Maybe. The same
in some small doses.
The same sort of thing happens to Wolverine time and again in the comics, where he takes a lot of damage, and it's only because he has the healing factor that he lives at all. And then it appears like he's very weakened for several issues to come. But eventually that healing power does bring him back up to full speed. It may take a year's worth of comics, but he gets back there. These aren't obviously the same characters, but it's the same power. So it's, and the boys doesn't seem to strive for originality with powers per se. I mean, the presentation of it and all that kind of stuff, that's definitely the boys' stock and trade, but they seem to not care about just borrowing from other existing properties, powers, and being like, yeah, it's just like that, whatever. So compare. I think it's a fair comparison to look at Wolverine as like a pattern for healers. In terms of Kimiko's future and her powers returning, whether by choice or by nature, that is a plot point that seems tied up in Frenchie's fate, given that he makes an unscheduled departure from the hospital.
Yeah. Their dynamic is the reason that I think that even if it was a permanent change directly from Soldier Boy, she possibly would figure out the access that she needs to reignite it again just to save him.
Since we're on the topic of Kimiko, and I agree, that seems like a very dramatic point for them to take Kimiko and her character, knowing that, you know, she doesn't want to have powers, but she doesn't want to lose Frenchie. Was there any type of meaning that my robotic brain was supposed to derive from the musical number?
Did you not like the musical number, Paul?
No, I did. I enjoyed it. Kimiko is as cute as they come, but but what I'm getting from it was sort of like a pie in the sky hopefulness of how things might be, given that she's doesn't have her powers, which is where she wanted to be, and a possible future with Frenchie kind of looking up and happy, like the tone of that musical number was.
I was just giving you a hard time. We've done so many podcasts together, and you've been pretty consistent about not enjoying these kinds of deviated ways. So I'm just teasing you.
That's funny.
I really enjoyed it, and I feel like, to me, I interpreted the purpose of seeing this is to feel Kimiko's like emotions, because she doesn't get to portray her emotions. She can't express her emotions herself directly. So these little musical numbers, because this is the second one that we see from her that's like this, right? For episode one,
right? Yeah,
right?
That's right.
So this is the second one. And both times I kind of took this as like kind of the emotion of what she's feeling, since we're not going to be able to get it any other way. And we don't want it like through a conversation that we have to interpret still stuff. This is just kind of like, we're just going to put you directly in her head. In her head in this moment is just like immense joy. It was just such a very happy-go-lucky, cheesy, jovial experience of what she's feeling, and it gives you a bigger appreciation for like her deep like desperation to like not have this power. And now that she got that, she achieved that goal, she's just this happy.
That's a great way to put it. She can't say it with her words. So the moment when she appears to say something with words, was that in her head also, or was that in reality?
That felt like reality, although I don't think she's there yet. I think she felt it coming, but it's not fully audible. So I think that's where we go into her head, maybe where she imagines she's going to be able to be, like now that she's, I guess, feeling a tingle or something, or a little bit came out. Because I mean, she knows how it felt to not have the voice, and I guess she's feeling different inside without having her powers. So I could just imagine that I'm going off of that, like of her knowing her own body and being like, oh my God, it's coming. And then like, I guess she's also probably imagined this so much, and maybe she's allowed herself to kind of like go in that little fantasy of like, especially since she's been in a really dark space lately. But I thought it was so tragic, because it was like, oh, it was such a nice moment, but then we know what's coming with Frenchie, and I was like, oh, typical boys.
The spot he was in was go kill a kid or risk whatever comes after that. What an impossible place to be in for a debt you don't actually owe anybody. You know, it's just sort of like someone walks up to you and says, you owe me a debt, and there's a big, strong guy behind you that's going to make sure you pay it. Like, I couldn't live like that myself. I'm glad I'm not in that role. I'm glad he didn't make the choice to go kill the kid, but on the other hand, that's going to probably force some big decision of Kimiko's down the line, because Billy and MM and everybody else they're frankly too busy with bigger fish to fry. And by that, I mean Homelander and the devil's deal they make with Soldier Boy at the end of the episode. Speaking of Soldier Boy, that was my second big fat event this episode. Was he comes home, he explodes and gets on the map of the 7, or the radar, the minimal radar that they have now that the Deep has taken over crime analytics. and agrees to become Billy's weapon. Is this possibly scarier than just leaving well enough alone with Homelander? Or are we just replacing Homelander with a worse guy? Like, what do you guys think is happening here?
I've got a lot of thoughts about this Soldier Boy, deal that we're making here. So I still have some questions about his power. So we do get a chance to see that he can use it intentionally, but it did seem the first 2 times that we saw this, there were both times that he used this power was really kind of like against his will, but he just like, whatever, I'm just like, I exploded and then I just like move on.
Well, it's I wonder if it's tied into quote unquote triggers, because he seemed very triggered by the Russian pop music.
Sparked that reaction that he couldn't hold back, and so he had this massive power explosion. The first time he did it was back in Russia when he hit Kimiko, and even then that didn't really look like it was intentional. She just kind of like healed over and then came out, and she was just like in the way. I can't even remember what happened. But then we do see him later on in this episode where it was intentional. So I have questions about like this volatility. It's kind of dynamic. How much in control is he of this power? I'm not super sure and confident that he has full control over this power. On top of that, just from like his history and the conversation that he has with the Crimson Countess, and then what we see between Maeve and Homelander, I just see parallels there, and it makes me feel like, Soldier Boy's not a good guy. So
I don't think he is, no.
I never got a sense that he was a good guy from any of the context. Eminem is a really good guy, and he fucking hates him like deeply. So I'm not convinced that he's a great guy. So I don't think that he's any different than Homelander is at this point, and I'm not really sure like what they're going to use to like get him on board. Be like, yeah, I'll go ahead and kill Homelander for you. Like, what is it that they've got to offer? He's just like Homelander. If anything, I could see him eventually like teaming up with him.
Well, Homelander has a form of post-traumatic stress, I suppose, given the way that he was raised. But I don't enjoy putting people's suffering on a scale, I guess. But this is a TV show, and I'm going to say that those flashbacks that Soldier Boy had of them like firing an AK-47 into his mouth just to see what would happen. Oh. I think that's harder core than, just not having a mommy and daddy from Homelander. So this guy, I think, is a bad solution. It's a, what do they say? The devil, kind of issue. Mm-hmm. They don't know what they're getting with Soldier Boy.
I find it very odd that like, I don't know if it's the V talking with Billy Butcher, or he's just really gone. Mother's Milk said like you got to know what line what's your line, be like, oh, I'm not going to do that. And I feel like even Billy said, I never had a line or something. So he's going all in. But I feel like it's bordering now on a little bit careless, because I feel like, I don't know, like if he was really thinking clearly, he doesn't know what Soldier Boy is going to do. Like, and he was locked up in that lab by Russians, like, and why would he care about them? He has no loyalty towards them, even if they let him out. I don't know. It's a bit risky. Literally, he's even more powerful. I mean, I think we don't really know for sure than Homelander. I don't know. Maybe it's just like his last hurrah. He's like, there was no weapon to kill Homelander. This is the weapon. If this doesn't work, I think Billy is just going to go into the sunset and be like, well, fuck it. I tried my best. I crossed all the lines. I couldn't do it. And then I think he's just going to give up. And I mean, he wouldn't give up, but he would go out guns ablazing.
That's more like it. Yeah.
But he's probably going to put like 5 of those V things in him if it doesn't work. So, yeah, because in my head, I think I've already concluded that he knows he's going to die in this process, and I think that's the way it feels like his decisions are being made. Right.
Like there is no tomorrow. Tomorrow's not guaranteed, so you might as well act like it.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the big lines is like he betrayed Mother's Milk. I mean, not that he's like a really good team player, but like, and he's betrayed kind of all of them, or in a way, like, he's kind of doing whatever he wants. And then, but that was like a big one because he knows, he's like, I know you're going to hate me. And he still did it anyway. So kind of tells you a lot.
It's like the swimming scene in Gattaca, right, Inez? Where he's like, my trick was I never left anything for the return trip. That's
right. Yeah.
That's Billy Butcher. I wonder if exposure and repeated exposure to the V adds to that recklessness. I mean,
Well, what was that kid he saw with Hughie?
That's one of my notes. I didn't quite
Mm-hmm.
get that. I saw that he gave Hughie a double, glance there when Hughie's throwing up in the Russian sink, but I didn't quite get the entire context. Did you guys?
I was assuming that was like maybe a flashback of his little brother. I don't know. That was just my guess, but I don't think they actually gave us anything other than that flashback to go off of. So that's my theory, is that he's still looking at him like that, but I don't know.
Yeah, although, I mean, they're both taking V, that is according to Maeve and Starlight. They made it a point. It's subtle, but they made it a point to really hone in that, like, hey, this is untested. This is not like formulated. Like they still don't know the thing. So I feel like that's a clue into sort of what's going to happen later, maybe with like the side effects and long lasting effects of. There has to be something. I don't think they're going to go without any consequences of taking V.
Third big plot point is not a big one, but it's still worth discussing, is the A-Train Blue Hawk situation and the press conference where Blue Hawk loses his shit. One of the reasons I wanted to mention that was several times over this past weekend at ATX, I ran into Nick Wexler. I don't know him, but I know what he looks like. And so he's the actor that played Blue Hawk. And just to comfort you, Inez, I do not believe there's any ounce of Blue Hawk that is Nick in real life. They didn't pick a little racist bastard to play the guy. They picked a nice guy to play a racist bastard.
He did great. He was convincing.
The big question there with that is, it's not even a question. There's first an observation, which is that's obviously probably written during the big thrust of the BLM stuff that happened over the course of the pandemic. That was a very present situation happening across the country, in the press, in the media, and in real life. So this is probably written as a reaction to that, just showing kind of what a jackass you look like when you make the same arguments as Blue Hawk in a public forum. The way that he went through his apology, just kind of reading his lines, I'll donate $10,000, yada, 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 et cetera, et cetera. But the big question mark for you guys to discuss is, what does that mean for A-Train? Is he finally getting on board to be a superhero now that his brother's paralyzed, or more just kind of treading water with this waste of a guy?
It's hard to tell with A-Train because I feel like we've gone down this road in the past few seasons. Like we see an inkling of his humanity where he's not just an asshole, but then he does something to, like he obviously sold out Supersonic to Homelander. And, then you're like, ugh, like I thought we could be on your side. I think at this point, I don't know what he's going to do. Like, I feel like maybe he reached his line of like, okay, well, paralyzing my brother is it, like maybe he does care about him. And it's sort of the thing that Starlight told him as well. Like, why do you keep going back to people who hate you? And then his brother obviously didn't hate him. And then that happened to him because of his selfishness of wanting to, of all the decisions he made and like the Blue Hawk thing that he was trying to make right for his own ambition. Right. So if anything could maybe change him, maybe this would be it. But also I'm just hesitant because I feel like there's been other instances where this has happened and then he goes kind of on the good side and then he goes back to be, his ambition gets the better of him. But he's sort of on a last lifeline as well. So like if his family is his brother is paralyzed and like that's it, I don't know, I feel like maybe he's just going to go all out too because he's like, well, I mean, I don't got anything else now. So, and he's going to feel guilty. If he goes against Blue Hawk, that's going to go against Homelander. So I think that would be the key. Like if he makes a move, then he's starting something with Homelander and he will actually have to be on the side with Starlight and I guess the Billy and Soldier Boy team.
I kind of question, like, does he have any superpowers left?
Yeah, because he can't really like run very much anymore or else he'll risks a heart attack. I also am kind of on this like cautiously just watching him. I don't have a lot of faith in this being a redemption arc start for A-Train. My husband thinks so. My husband's giving him some credit that because it's his brother, this will be the turning point finally. The whole way how he handled like this, like, I want to do something good. And then Ashley is like, okay, well, what do you want to do to make this better? And he's just like go and apologize or something. Like, it was like not even like a solid plan. It was definitely still part of that like corporate fake virtue signaling,
Right, yeah.
type of campaign still, right? Like even from the get-go of that. So like it was insincere from the beginning. I also think a lot about how callous and cold he was in season 1 with, how he killed Hughie's girlfriend, right? And ate her tooth and laugh about it. I feel like that's like deep. That's like deep of like who somebody is. Can you really recover and redeem yourself in any kind of way to come back from like that? Because then it tells me how many other people has he like murdered in this way or her in this way for many, many years. We're just coming up on seeing the years that he's been in the 7 from the moment that Hughie's story starts, right? Who knows what like his story was back then. And I just don't feel very confident in it. So I don't have a lot of faith in him having a redemptive arc this season. If anything, I feel like maybe it sets him up to die this season.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that because like we've said about him and the Deep, they've done so much wrong to the characters that we like. And just sort of in that universal sense of right and wrong, even if they do find a way to die or have a meaningful scene where they could be considered redeemed, it will still feel somewhat hollow, and that at least now this character that we don't care about is off the board, right? Maybe it's all just a way to set them up so that when they are in that place, whatever it is, to make that final move that does matter for the teammate that we do care about, it doesn't come from nowhere. It's not just totally out of the blue that A-Train uses his last ounce of super speed to do the one pivotal thing before his heart gives out or whatever, right? At least we'll have that build up to it, but I might be giving the guy too much credit to hope for something like that. Let's move on and kind of go through some of our main characters. Was it at all amusing to see Homelander now in charge of Vought and have no idea how to run a company?
I like that. It was funny.
Yeah. It's just really funny because he's such a narcissist. He's so confident in himself and that he should be running things. And then he's like, okay, like you're literally in the spot now. And,
right.
Yeah. And then like that meltdown tantrum because he couldn't answer one question. Like, wow, that was like perfect. It was just perfect for who he is. And I'm really glad they included this scene.
I mean, I'm not a CEO. But I'd imagine that question that she gave him was a very everyday kind of question that people in a big company's C-suite are supposed to be able to know the answer to, without freaking out. The more interesting moment that Homelander had for me in this episode, and he had a couple, was when he saw Soldier Boy's tape, that he blew up, what to do about it. I think he's unsure. Like, he thinks this might be a fight he could lose, so he doesn't want to get into it. What do you guys think?
He definitely looked like he was scared. Maybe not necessarily scared, but old Homelander, or the Homelander we know, I feel like would run into this situation ready to show that he can save the world. So it's weird that he was like, nah, I'm going to stay over here and just talk about it on a TV show. So I think he's buying time and he doesn't know what to do. So he's like, I'm just going to still continue this ratings show while I'm like, it's sort of like he doesn't want to think about whatever that is. And he's like, well, it's not at Vought yet, so let me just go and do this, because maybe it has shaken him a little bit.
Yeah, it makes me wonder what he knows about Soldier Boy, because I was curious why he kind of was displaying avoidance behavior. So that made me think also, yeah, he's probably a little bit unsure and scared. But why? Why would he be like this if he's never known Soldier Boy? What does he know about Soldier Boy that makes him this way? What does he know about whatever this mission thing is of where Soldier Boy was taken and turned into? What does he know about it that would justify him feeling nervous? Because he's really good about like dismissing anybody and everybody, because he is like so invincible.
I hadn't even considered that aspect of it, Inez, that, given the tape that he saw and the fact that they mentioned that Soldier Boy is exhibiting unseen powers, I had the assumption that he didn't know what he was seeing. He just knew that he saw a very powerful explosive soup and didn't want to get into the middle of it, at least not right away. But I hadn't considered that maybe he did know what was going on or did have access to those files because, he's the man at Vought now, so he can look up anything he wants to look up. Interesting perspective there. Maybe there is a lot more to know. Perhaps even this Russian site where he was at was what the government would call a black site, a place off their normal beaten path where if they need to do something that the Geneva Conventions would frown upon, they do it in a black site where nobody will find whatever they're doing. Well, maybe in this sense, this is a corporate version of a black site, and it takes place in Russia because their laws would make it very difficult for Americans to find out about it or something like that.
Was it season 1 where they had like the soup villains? And I think he was at one of the houses where the one guy was like the suicide bomber type of suit power, and he was in there with that explosion and he was not fazed by that. Then I had like another thought train that probably is not going to be as accurate, but just hear me out.
Let it loose.
The other part of this could be that he was just not interested in dealing with it because he's really excitedly focused on like just knowing that he's like the head of Vought now and wanting to do like that stuff and focus only on that stuff and be the face and show everybody that he's the face and he's the leader and all of this stuff. And it's just mostly like that he just rather play doing that instead of worrying about like real like superhero things to do.
I just had a flash while you were describing that. What if this is like a multi-season kind of issue, right? Where they say they have, in this season, they have the big throwdown between Soldier Boy and Homelander because Homelander is so out of practice because he's been masquerading as CEO or whatever you would call it since Ashley's officially the CEO. I mean, yeah, he's technically still Homelander, but he's rusty and he's just not what he could have been. So he gets into this battle with Soldier Boy and loses, but doesn't die. You could imagine where he has sort of like this Jaime Lannister version of clawing his way back to what he was, kind of away from the spotlight while the world learns that Soldier Boy is way worse than Homelander ever was. Then the audience gets in the position of rooting for the guy who they despised a minute ago.
I'm down for that storyline.
I'm here if you need me, Eric Kripke. The third moment with Homelander that I wanted to talk about with you guys is when he confronts Maeve. It's a very subtle moment at the beginning or toward the beginning of the episode when they show Black Noir playing with something. And it's just like a flash on the camera. It's meant to tell us, as we learn later, like Black Noir's still, or yeah, that's the name. Black Noir's still around. I had assumed that he had vacated a spot on the 7, which opened up one of the 2 spots that was available for the American Hero contest. Now, Supersonic died last episode, opening up another spot again, leaving a marginally functional Black Noir able to resume some position back on the 7, I guess. He didn't come out of nowhere when he took Maeve. They showed him earlier, just for a second though. The discussion that he had with Maeve and especially in the way that it parallels what happened between Crimson Countess and Soldier Boy, sort of the leading man and leading lady PR setup that had been created for both men. I won't pretend it was created for the women. Is that dangerous? How closely that the women's reaction parallel each other? Would that, what I just described is one possible situation for those 2 guys to have, but another one could be that they understand each other too well and become a duo of epic mega powers.
That did make me very nervous. I've always felt like, and Maeve's always felt like this too, that her life is in danger essentially with Homelander, especially now that he doesn't give a fuck about that video. Then seeing, like they both are like, I loved you. And both women respond to them saying, well, I've hated you from the beginning and everybody hates you. And that happened to both of them. And you know, and then Soldier Boy turns the Crimson Countess into a Crimson Crisp. That's the one I was waiting for, guys.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Or Crispy Countess if you want an alternate.
Yeah, that sounds like a meal. Now I want KFC. But yeah, and so I felt like, you know, these guys sound like they could actually be besties if you frame this, if you play the cards just right, because I don't really see any kind of motive of why Soldier Boy would want to just team up blindly with somebody he doesn't know.
Yeah.
Right. So
that's a big issue for me. Right.
I hope she's not sidelined again, because I feel like she just keeps getting the short end of the stick with these things. Like she's there, but then she's not. And I don't know, maybe she's going to come back again like she did at the end of season 2. But I hope that's not the last we see of her. But I don't know, who knows what Homelander did with her.
It's a funny mental game that they play with us, the creators of the show and us viewers, in that I just kind of assign her a Wonder Woman power set, given the little that they've shown us of what she can do. But that still puts her at a pretty high level of strength and ability. But then they show us so little of what she can freaking do. Like you say, they sideline her so much just because of her own, you know, emotional issues and her jaded personality and all that. Mm-hmm. It's like they keep enticing us with this idea, like if she just fucking let loose one of these times, it would be great.
And she's telling us herself, like, I'm the only one that can do this. Like, I can hold him off at least for a second, and then Billy can do its thing, or the weapon can do its thing. So that shows that she's pretty close to being super powerful. And that's probably why Homelander doesn't kill her outright, because I don't know if it would just take a long time, maybe. And he's like, I don't want to deal with this. And I think he also just likes fucking with her. So he's like, I'm going to put her, you know, leave her there and let her think she's, you know, doing this and that. But what if, like, also, I mean, I don't know, I forgot what Black Noir's necessarily like his powers are, but what if, like, I mean, they did emphasize all this training and stuff, so maybe like Black Noir takes her somewhere, but then she's able to fight him off, you know, because we would assume that she's in a good headspace now of like preparing for this moment. I also hope on some, like in the, you know, next episode or the later season, that we see her like she just wasn't a victim, and that, like, you know, Black Noir takes her somewhere and like she's sidelined forever. Like she actually is able to escape on her own with this storyline.
I mean, what they've shown us is that even though they present differently, because she has sort of that warrior goddess armor and then Black Noir has that body armor situation, I think they have very similar powers, just strength and endurance and, you know, toughness, that kind of thing. But I don't think they fly, and I don't think they have any other, you know, whiz bang sort of powers. So the idea that she could take on Noir, I totally buy. I had no idea she would take on Billy Butcher.
Oh my God, when they started drinking, I called it. I was watching with my husband. I was like, oh, they're going to get together. And then like she turns around and then they do it. And then I was like, yep.
Your Pound Town radar went off.
Yeah, I was like, ooh, cute.
When I started drinking, I knew they were going to bang.
What a moment, though, for Butcher, because just seconds before that, he's saying essentially that I acknowledge that I need your help, but at the end of this, my project is to kill all of you, including you. And then she's like, those are sexy words to me. Let's go.
Maybe yeah. She was like, oh, that's so cute. She's just looking at Billy like he's just so cute for thinking like this.
But I wonder, what does it really mean about Butcher's dedication to the cause, right? I mean, because you'd have thought that his hatred ran so deep that the idea of having sex with a soup would be dirtying to him, like beneath him, like he couldn't deal with it. He couldn't live with himself. Maybe this is another aspect of continued exposure to the temp V, perhaps.
Or him just being a guy, and he hasn't.
And there's a hot woman here that is
and he hasn't been with
interested.
Becca. Yeah, and he hasn't been with Becca. I mean, you know, he hadn't been with Becca in like for, you know, since she passed probably, and it's been a while.
Let's
and
hope.
then and then Maeve is there, like, and then also I think it was kind of appealing to him because like he knows she could kill him, and so maybe that was also like attractive in the moment. The hate.
Pussy is pussy. So
yeah. Soup or no soup.
I wasn't surprised about it just because I guess I feel like a lot of times men don't have that kind of rationale when it comes to actually getting a chance to have sex with a willing partner. So they're just like, all right, we'll take it. And, it's not like she was born with it, right? This was done to her.
Accurate. Yeah.
Yeah, right. He did it to himself. So maybe he's just like, the rules don't apply in this scenario.
You can start making all kinds of special, one time only rules in that situation. I imagine exceptions, if you will. I've never had this situation where Queen Maeve has been interested in me. So let's just see how this works out. So where is she? Where did she go? Is she a goner? Is she just needing a moment to get her wits about her to fend off Noir? I know we have Kat's idea, but what about you, Inez?
Oh, I just assume that she is currently captive.
Ashley wouldn't commit to anything. Some bullshit about rehab.
Oh, yeah. I think that just is some kind of code word that she is captive somewhere and is not going to say. That's how I interpreted that.
With her absence and Supersonic being gone, and you can't count on the Deep or A-Train for anything, this largely leaves Starlight alone, especially given the way that this episode ends up and Hughie failing the test that was put to him. She's kind of running a one-woman anti-Homelander insider operation at this point. Is that correct?
Yeah, she's in a super vulnerable position. Like, this is really bad for Starlight. She's never been more alone. Her one ally that had powers to help her is gone. And then Hughie, as well-intentioned as he is, like, let's be real, that V that he's taking wasn't to protect Annie, who was already a kick-ass superhero without him.
I mean, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is he fooling himself with this saving? I need to be the one to save you argument that he keeps telling himself?
Probably his continued insecurities more than anything.
Yeah.
And he liked it. He was high from it in a very happy way.
And it's sort of going down that road that we were talking about. A lot of the theme of this episode too is crossing lines and what that means and the consequences of that, and everyone making those choices that kind of you may not be able to come back from. So he made his decision. And so I don't know if they're going to be able to come back from that, like him and Starlight, even if it is well-intentioned. And she's been telling him directly, I need you to stay alive. I need you to stay alive. And his ego is like, no, but I need to save you. I need to save you. He can't handle it. He's not a soup and she is, and that he's helpless and he just can't get out of his own way. So I don't know. I think that's his flaw. He's not doing it for her at all. He's doing it for himself, thinking he's doing it for her.
I think it's related to what we're talking about with Butcher. They're both using the Temp V. Their inhibitions about what they know to be kind of their core selves have been broken down. Like Butcher and the way that he despises soups, but willing to have sex with one, even though we've talked about that she's hot and she's right there and ready to go and all that. Still, though, his code and his principles don't align with everybody else, but they are pretty defined and strong. Where Hughie, his love for Starlight was his defining, motivation for a very long time. But like you guys say, and I agree with, he likes having superpowers. He likes it. And that seems to be overriding what would normally, give him a more solid North Star about what he wants to do, especially when it comes to Starlight. That's a long way of saying, I think in addition to liking powers, the Temp V is breaking down some other elements of their personality, their inhibitions or their moral compass or something chemically, in addition to just the dopamine from having powers, right? So Inez, I'm going to give you credit for calling out Hughie's growing addiction to the Temp V, because that was an issue you brought up in the last podcast and spoke about. And the way that he lied willingly, quickly to Starlight about not using again. And then the next chance he got, he was like, yep, I'm in, totally. Give me them. And
yeah, he's like, I loved it. I loved it so much.
So this one's for you.
Yeah. Yay. Thank you. Thank you. I'm able to see the signs. Yeah, I think he's on a slippery slope for sure. And we've seen that Butcher got a bigger supply of it. is going to make for a very interesting next few episodes.
At the end of this episode, when there is an unstated ultimatum put to Hughie about you can either go with Starlight or you can go with Butcher. Kat, did it remind you at all of the get in the van Hughie scene from last season?
Yeah. I know what you said, and I do think there's like the V, that is altering them on a chemical level. But I do feel like Hughie has always exhibited these signs. So like, he's a little bit too into himself of like having to, I think, the helplessness. So I don't know. I think, but yeah, it seems like these choices keep coming up in every season and he makes the wrong one.
To an extent, I wonder if he actually has on some level always resented Starlight for having powers and he doesn't.
I think so. He kind of, I think, doesn't, and I think the thing is he hasn't admitted that to himself and then fully accept it. And then they haven't had a conversation about it. And so I think that's why he hides it from her. And there's something going on there. Like the foundation is not solid for them.
It makes sense that he really loves having the power because we saw season 1, he was a full-blown like fanatic of the Supes. He had their action figures, he had their posters up. He was a grown man that he is right now, just like a couple years younger, right?
Yeah.
You know, to finally get a chance to have the powers and he's like living like a better life. It's kind of like, you know, that's exciting. I'm not surprised that he's all about it. I also kind of find it interesting. And I don't know if this was intentional or if I missed something or if it's going to be a continuation into the next episode. But, you know, that last scene with them all where he takes the V to go to Crimson Countess's place and he doesn't even get to like use the power other than to just demonstrate to Starlight. So I'm thinking like he just took this drug that's going to cause him a lot of pain and like for nothing. Like he didn't use it. It wasn't used for any purpose because like he wasn't even around the action that, you know, when they like needed to. Maybe we'll see some of the continuation of that scene in the next episode. But I thought that was also kind of interesting, could be an interesting point of like, he says that he needs it, that he's got it and he's there because that's the only way that he's going to be able to help. But then ironically, like he doesn't even get to use it, doesn't even utilize this power in any way. So really he just took it like because of his own vanity.
Didn't even impress the girl.
No, not at all. And then it's like he like loses his clothes and so it's not even like he doesn't even look cool like when he's doing it. He's just kind of in this, I don't even, what's he gonna do, like teleport and then like keep running back to the original spot to put his clothes back on and then teleport again and then run back again? It's like a yo-yo.
Right. But that was the same situation with the guy that they blew up, right? With the
translucent, yeah,
that turned naked. My powers, I turned naked. No, he turned invisible. Man, that's something in the comics that they Marvel and DC never went that direction. They always allowed their
I
heroes
really love that.
to retain
I
their
really, really love that they do that though in this. I think Fantastic Four did it, right? They showed that they had to create special suits in order for the powers to adhere to their needs.
They
right?
at least mentioned it, yeah.
Right. That was kind of the only first instance that I can remember. So I really, really love that about this show is how much they keep it like authentic in like the science way, like the biological makeup of how this could physically happen if it were like a real story. But interesting. I was reading an article. You remember in the last, I think it was 2 episodes ago when they were in the orphanage and we saw that kid teleport.
Yeah.
I read an article. I haven't gone back to the episode to confirm, but the article says that is Teddy Stillwell, that is Elizabeth.
The old boss's kid?
Child, right? That we all like assumed like blew up when Butcher like blew up the whole place. And the article was going about like, you know, would Homelander like give a shit about rescuing this baby unless it was like his? And would he even have time to be able to pull both Butcher and the baby out? And so the article was just kind of had this running theory that child teleported is Teddy Stillwell and likely survived because it teleported during the explosion. So anyway, just kind of like a little fun, like thought train for you guys there.
That's a good tip. That's a good tip for the listeners too, because they probably wouldn't have come across that information. But it adds some neat texture to the universe here that they want to make a fuller TV mythos than just an episodic, keep track of what's happening now, but you can forget what happened earlier kind of show.
But that kid could teleport with his clothes on, so I don't know. He's got something else going on.
The boys is willing to show a lot, but naked kids, no. I'm glad for that. Good. I would hate for...
good call.
Yeah. Well, I think we've answered enough about old Hughie. He is operating too much with that whatever it takes mentality, but he is sort of all leap and no look right now with his actions, taking drugs, choosing Butcher. Butcher and his loyalties are a very dangerous thing to rely on, and that is the horse he bet on in this race. I don't think I would have made that same call were I in his same spot right then. There is a little bit with MM in this episode where I wonder if moving forward, given that he is the one who contacted Starlight at the end of the episode, and he is also drugged, roofied to be specific, to prevent him from interfering with Butcher's plans, I kind of wonder if he might team up with Starlight in some way. If I was Mother's Milk, I don't know that I could keep working with Butcher now that he had drugged me.
It definitely was fucking stupid of Butcher to do that because Eminem is a super valuable team member. I wouldn't, if I was Eminem, I would probably have like that multi-year grudge that Eminem had against Frenchie in season 1. I probably would develop something similar like that for Butcher at this point. That's horrible.
And also him making the connection with the legend. That was more or less a silly scene. It gave us a new character, the legend, played by Paul Reiser, who, as children of the 80s, we would recognize him from multiple sitcoms, Mad About You being one. He was also the company man in Aliens. But he wasn't trying to be funny there.
He's in Stranger Things season 2.
Right. He is the nice doctor, the doctor you can actually trust from the evil company. But yeah, the legend gives them the information they need to find the Crimson Countess. He mostly just regales us with stories of banging women from the 80s. Shannon Tweed or whatever her name was. But my last character is Soldier Boy. We weren't privy to the conversation that was had between him and Butcher. And we've already brought up, we didn't fully explore just why would this guy agree to go along with this plan? Did you guys have anything that you told yourselves when you watched that scene to make it make sense?
I feel like I have more questions and there's too many holes right now. And it's just about Butcher being like overly confident and just so tunnel vision that he's willing to do whatever it takes. And it might not be super smart. Right.
Well, if you already can't kill Homelander, the guy you're trying to kill, except for, you think you found a guy who can do it for you with his own superpowers. I mean, what makes you think you can rein that guy in after the deed is done?
Right. I mean, we saw what happened to the Countess. Like, holy fuck, man. She was completely obliterated. It also shows you like how strong Kimiko's abilities were, that she did not end up like that from his shot. Good call. But yeah. Too confusing for me right now, so I'm eager to get on to the next episode to see if it closes the hole that we've already covered.
They must do this on purpose, but they really don't tell us a lot about any of the powers and the scope of it. And I think that's sort of a play on maybe, or a parody on, all the other superhero movies and powers that they kind of go into mega explanation in some of those movies.
Yeah, but they do.
Yeah, and so I feel like here they're just banking also off of the audience already kind of knowing that, and like that's not the important part. Like the details of it. So I'm trying not to go too much into like the power thing and being like, why don't I need to know this? Because I think that's not the point of the show. It's sort of, that's the parody of it. But I do feel like given that he has been experimented on, we don't know what the Russians kind of did to him or what that bomb did to him. He obviously has radiation of a mega level. And I think he doesn't even know what's happening to him. And like, imagine coming out, like, I don't know how long ago that was. I forgot when he died, but it's been a hot minute. So like he hasn't even gone through the disorientation of like, there's new technology in the world, and you know, there's like, he's seen the new soups, and like, I think he hasn't taken the time to process what has happened to him. And then he's having the PTSD flashbacks. And then if he didn't have that power before he went into the chamber that they put him in for how long, like we don't know how long, he has not really fully grasped how to use it. He's just really a ticking time bomb. And I think it's like the triggers where he gets angry and, you know, he doesn't know how to control it. Yeah, that would be interesting to kind of see. But it seems like, you know, when Starlight did her eye thing, like, you know, put her powers, he kind of was able to like not just lose it, but I think he didn't see her as a threat. So I think he was
That's how I felt. Yeah.
Yeah, he was like, I don't need to do my, you know, chest burst thing like on you because you're so inconsequential, which is kind of an insulting thing, but that seems like what Soldier Boy is. He's sort of an ass. I think he's just kind of in limbo, and I hope the next episode, which is what they've really teased, like from the interviews I've seen, that Herogasm is going to be like crazy, and then Jensen Ackles, who plays Soldier Boy, has been like, oh, you're not going to believe this, you know, or like, you know, they've kind of been really hyping that episode up. So I hope that we do have a gasm of some sort, because then I'll be like, you know, I'll be like, I didn't get gasmed. So they really hyping it up for all of us. And I hope that's the episode they do sort of his story and the flashback, and maybe the Herogasm is that super chest power.
It is interesting to see Jensen Ackles in this role, isn't it? Because, I mean, he has been a CW good-looking lead guy for a long time, and he's very much playing against type with this character. Scruffy looking, unknown motivations, might be completely evil, might be, you know, have a different kind of ethos that we don't quite understand because we haven't been through what he's been through. He's sort of, so he was sort of like he was Captain America going in, but more like Bucky coming out, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
That's probably, those parallels are probably very intentional. What do you guys have for predictions? You guys had some pretty good ones coming into this one. Do you guys have any thoughts about where we're going, or is the title Herogasm just too wide open to even guess?
Man, well, I've mentioned last time that I've been reading articles of actors' reactions to them filming this episode as being borderline traumatizing. So I think I'm just like ready for it. I love this show for these crazy things. Like my favorite scene in this episode was with Seth Rogen.
Oh my God.
That was like beautiful magic to me. I'm so fucking happy they did that. So like little secret story time, guys, but like Seth Rogen is like my celebrity crush. Like I like, I know. And it is probably because of all of this really like bad shit that he like thinks of that makes me laugh and like go crazy all the time. So anyway, that was my favorite scene this one. So as far as predictions, I think I'm mostly curious about Kimiko. I want to see like, you know, her processing. I'm interested to see more about what's going on in her mind as she's like processing the emotions of why Frenchie didn't return and what's going to happen once she finds out what's gone on. And just, I'm so curious about that story. I don't really have a prediction more than what I've already kind of shared throughout the episode, but that's what I'm most interested in seeing play out.
No one else has time to figure out Frenchie. I think it's going to be up to Kimiko to sort out what has to be done to get him back, if it's even possible, all by herself.
Yeah. I mean, because Gasm should be in essence should be like pleasure filled. So, but in The Boys, like you have to think the opposite of that in a very ironic or, I don't know, like fucked up way. So I'm like, is this going to be the opposite of pleasure for the heroes or for us as an audience? Like, so I really don't know what to expect. I just know, like, I have been like in that same interview, I think Jensen Ackles was also like, don't tell Eric Kripke what your line is, because then he's going to, he's going to make you do it or something like that. So I'm like, ooh, is this going to be in this episode?
Well, Anthony Starr, in the article I read, said that he refuses to even watch this episode because of whatever happened.
Yeah. So I'm not going to make any predictions. I'm just going to enjoy it.
Oh.
I'm going to hype myself up and just, kind of go in with a clean slate, no expectations, and ready for gasms.
When your description there made me think of an article that I had read about the creators of South Park back when they made Team America World Police.
Oh, God, yeah, that movie is very boys-like.
Yeah, well, the sensibilities are very similar, right, in terms of what they're willing to show and the lengths that they're willing to go to make their point and create satire and all that. But you remember the puppet sex scene, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, you know how it goes on very long?
Yeah. It was a great one.
Apparently, they had a longer cut that included a golden shower sequence.
I think I've read something like that.
And they only did that because they knew that the ratings board would have to watch it. And they knew that they would have to cut it in order to get an R rating, because a golden shower is beyond even an R rating. But they so relished the idea of forcing the secretive pod of people that rate all of our movies to watch puppets pee on each other.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
So it was for their pleasure, their gasm, that they created that sequence.
Yeah.
That is
the only
amazing.
thing I can think of that would be so effed up but would be in the boys' realm is if they actually, like, Homelander and Soldier Boy get off on each other because they're so powerful, and then like they're both of the same caliber where they actually they get turned on with each other or something.
Like Homelander and Stormfront did. Like,
yeah, because and Homelander, they like everything. So it seems to like he likes everything. It doesn't matter. So like as long as he's in control. So, and he's never really had anyone that can control him. So what if he likes that? What if he actually can bleed, like with the little radiation burn? He's like, ooh.
That is not off the table, Kat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's my one prediction. Even though I hope that doesn't happen, but like it wouldn't surprise me.
a circle jerk between the main heroes.
Yeah, although it would be actually kind of funny to see like home. I don't know. Actually, maybe that's what I want to happen. Why am I shying away from it? I'm going to go with my prediction.
Go all in.
Right. Live in your truth, as they
in.
say, Kat.
Yes, live in my truth. Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys. It has been great talking to you guys about this one. And I also cannot wait to hear or to see what happens in Herogasm. I'm so revved up for it. I might just go watch it tonight. If someone wanted to find you, Kat, on the interwebs, how would they do that?
They can find me on Twitter and Instagram at thingscatloves.
And if people wanted to find you, Inez, where would they look?
On Twitter at NeezyThinks, and then on Facebook, if there's a boys discussion group, I'm usually in it reading stuff. So
doing her research.
It's the one thing I can contribute here, because I don't know half the stuff that you guys know with the actors and directors. So I read the articles.
You hold your own, that's for sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
If you like this podcast, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to it on iTunes or Amazon or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. Please give us a high rating so other people can find it and listen to our off-the-wall circle jerk predictions. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening. This has been an original Pod Clubhouse production. Pod Clubhouse is a podcast network dedicated to encouraging collaboration among podcasters and friends to bring a fresh voice and diverse perspective on a wide array of content. Please visit and leave a comment for us at podclubhouse.com. Rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast feeds on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find us at Pod Clubhouse. Our DMs are always open, and we'd love to hear from you.
Pod Clubhouse.